Welcome. I'm Peggy. Thank you for sharing your day with us. And I urge you to stay tuned because we have some information that is very important for all of us to know and understand. And I'm delighted. Maybe you haven't heard about it. There's an organization called Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Okay? And this is all over the United States, not just here. And I'm going to start with something I love very much. This is the Constitution of the United States. And it fits in my handbag. And it's priceless. So this, I want to make it perfectly clear that this document gives us the right to own and bear guns and to defend ourselves. And our forefathers knew that. And they made that a ruling so that no foreign government could come in here and take us over. That was one of the things that they chose to put in here, that we can defend ourselves. So I wanted to make that clear up front. My guests are not here to say that you can't own a gun or you can't defend yourself. But we need to also have responsibility. And I'm honored to have somebody special here with me. Erin Dando is here. And I know you're a young mother.
Well, yeah. I'm not sure about young, but I do have young kids. Thank you.
And next to her is Reverend Steve Daughty. And he is a retired Presbyterian minister. And next to him is Debby Edwards. And Debby, I'm so glad you came along. Now, this is something many people haven't even heard about.
Right. You know, Moms...
And we have a website and a phone number. And what is the object of all of this?
The real motivation for Moms Demand Action is to help educate the public and make people aware of what our gun laws are and what is really happening with gun violence. We were founded right after Sandy Hook, that massacre in Connecticut.
That was horrible.
And it was a wake-up call. And so personally for me, I started looking at gun violence here in South Carolina and here in the upstate.
And in our schools.
And in schools. And, you know, even since Sandy Hook, we've had 31 school shootings across the country.
It's unbelievable.
It's unreal, and it has to stop. But it's not just that. It's the daily gun violence. It's domestic violence that turns to murder when there's a gun present. It's suicide by gun. It's accidental shooting of children, which we've had at least 5 in South Carolina over the past year.
And it's gangs.
It is. There are problems with guns in every facet of our community. And so Moms Demand Action is here to help educate the public and to motivate and find easy ways for all of us to speak up and to speak out against gun violence, specifically through stronger and smarter gun laws. Like you said, we're not trying to take anyone's gun away. We fully affirm the Second Amendment and believe in responsible gun ownership, but the epidemic of gun violence is devastating. It's devastating here in South Carolina and throughout the country, and we have to stop it.
And we need to find ways. I mean, a parent never used to think about, you send your child to school, and you might have thought they'd get in a fight or they'd have, fall down on the playground and skin their knee or all kinds of things, but you never thought that somebody would walk in that school and kill children. It never occurred to you. And look where we've come. And I'd like to ask you, Reverend, how you became involved and why.
I would go back a long way to a root in my own life. In high school, I was seated next to a very good friend my senior year. We were in the baritone section in the chorus and enjoyed the day together. Went home, he went home. He got in an argument with his mother that night, and teenage years are impulsive years. He went to her bedside table. He took out the gun that she kept there for her safety. He would not turn it on his mother. He turned it on himself, and he killed himself as an act of spite for what was happening. I related to that family. He had a younger brother. I also related to the mother. And the heartache was just immense. the loss of a very fine young life was immense. In my years as a pastor, the loss of a child is among the most devastating losses that can come. And I would at times be dealing with that. I know that today in this country, 8 children, young people, die every day from gunshot wounds. That's accidental, that's gang, that can be suicide,
All
across the country. And it is the occasional terrible mass shooting as well, but all across the country. And for myself, in my own just heart of hearts and my sense of where God is drawing, I sense we have to do all we responsibly can to see that these sorts of things don't happen. I'm not opposed to persons having guns, but I am very much in favor of doing what we can to lessen the pain and avoid these sorts of tragedies.
Okay, and what about you, Debbie? How did you become a
Well, I am a gun owner myself, actually.
All right.
And I went through and received my concealed weapons permit, went through the 8
you
hours
have
of
a permit.
training.
You learned how to use it properly.
Yes, ma'am, I did. And what the rules are and what the laws are. That was a big part of it as well. I got my concealed weapons permit in November, right before Sandy Hook. And when Sandy Hook happened, I had already made the decision that I personally was not going to carry my gun, even though the law allows me to do that with a concealed weapons permit. And part of the reason for that is I don't have the vigilante complex, I guess, to think that I'm going to be the one to stop somebody from robbing a store or doing something like that. Because if you think about that and you think about the responsibility that involves of making a decision whether or not to fire on someone, even cops get that wrong.
Yeah.
And they have a lot more training than the 8 hours that I had, you know. And I just didn't want that responsibility. So it's in my home, it's for my protection. We don't have any small children anymore. Our kids are grown. And no grandkids. We only have the ones with 4 legs and fur at this point. But even so, even though it's only the 2 of us, my husband and myself at home, I keep it in a locked box.
All right. Now, I want to ask you, so we all know what the law says now for all of us. So we know that, and also how important it is, as you did, if you're going to have a gun, go and learn not only what the law says, but how to use it. And I'm going to just inject one thing here, and maybe this is naive, but this is my own personal thought, that what we have in our film theaters, on our television screens, is way too much violence. And after a while, you become numb to it. And I think we need to take a look at our entertainment industry as well, because I think they promote violence because it makes money. Now, you know, that's what I think, and I could be wrong. But tell me what the law says.
So right now in South Carolina, we have some of the weakest gun laws in the nation. We also have one of the highest gun mortality rates. We are #1 in the nation for women murdered by men, the majority of those with a gun. So we really are in a desperate situation. We've actually been in the top 10 of women murdered by men for at least 15 consecutive years. So this isn't new, the violence against women or men, children, anyone. It's still happening. But in South Carolina, there are various ways to avoid a background check. To purchase a gun, you need to be a resident of South Carolina for 30 days, and you can't have a criminal record. However, you can buy a gun through a private sale, which would be me selling to you, or me buying online within our state, buying at a gun show from a private seller. So let's say Steve was selling one at a gun show.
So anybody could go to these gun shows, and if they have the money, they can buy the gun and walk out the door with it. And then they can sell it to anybody they want to sell it to.
Right, and that's part of the problem. There are federally licensed firearm dealers that have the correct permitting through the federal government, and they do perform background checks. And I don't think that they would ever do anything to jeopardize that system. But it's unfair, really, to not apply that same background check to a private person who's selling it, because all the background check is verification that that person is not prohibited from owning a gun. And In our nation,
In other
it's-
words, they don't have a criminal record.
exactly. And it's estimated that 40% of all gun sales avoid the background check. So only 60% of gun sales, we actually confirm that someone's allowed to buy the gun and take it home.
Now, you mentioned you no longer have small children at home, and you are a responsible gun owner.
I
and
consider
I
myself
have
to
a
be.
friend that she's alone a lot. Her husband travels. She has a gun in her bedside drawer table, the table that sits by her bed with a drawer. She can pull it, and she can shoot. This gal, believe me. You've got to be able to say to yourself, if the situation came along, would I be willing and able to pull that trigger? That's the first thing you have to ask yourself. But you are responsible about what you do with your gun.
Yes, ma'am.
But what about these people that, you know?
That's one of the things that we really do need to address, not just in this state, but in the entire country. Because a lot of the people that get their hands on guns, especially children, don't know any better. And they're saying, well, they've been around guns their whole life. They, I take them hunting,
they
they
think it's a toy.
understand. But the part of the brain that controls judgment doesn't fully develop until the age of 23, I think it is. They do not have the maturity to understand the consequences of their actions. And people walk in and assume a gun is unloaded when they should do just the opposite. They should always assume the gun is loaded until they, empty it and make sure that it is empty.
Now, if people have guns in their homes, they should keep them locked in a case.
They
or-
need to lock them up. In our case, we do have my daughter's fiance's son comes once in a while, not often, but he comes to the house. When he comes, I take the locked box that's already locked and put it on top of the closet shelf. People that think they can put a gun on a closet shelf just open,
Yeah.
empty, and not have a 12-year-old or a
Well,
10-year-old.
It's very tempting.
They
Sure.
can get to anything.
And this is a gun lock. I have one that's all packaged up, and this one. This, I was told, and you can check it, everybody, if you have a gun, you should have a gun lock, okay? But many places, the police have a program where they give these free. And I suggest if you haven't a gun lock and you have a gun, call your local police and find out if they have a gun lock that they will let you have at no cost. Now, I don't quote me on that, but that's what they told me when they gave me these. So all right, we're gonna go to a quick break. We have a phone number, a website, and we hope that you people out there will really get serious about this, because we can make changes for the better. We'll be right back.